Hello, welcome to the second lecture of Chapter 2 of Comprehensive AI, ML and Data Science course. Now, we were talking about this topic of core features of Python. Okay, and as such, I can just describe this. But before describing that, I have preferred to take one blog and using that blog because it gives several examples and it does the comparison of Java versus Python. Again, I would like to say that this is not a question of taking down one language and blindly praising other language and everything. And Java versus Python comparison also is not necessary. Some people actually data science point of view, the better comparison will be R versus Python because R and Python they are still the two languages which are the most widely used for data science. But the point of giving this comparison is to make these points easier to understand when we first discuss this example. Whenever we compare programming languages, we have to compare based on these four features: type checking, code readability and formatting, white space, use of white space. Certain programming languages ignore white space. For example, HTML ignores white space, Java ignores white space. While for certain programming languages, white space is the most important thing. For example, for Python, white space is the most important thing because it decides that indentation, as I showed just in previous lecture. Brevity, to accomplish the same task, how short code is required so that it reduces the developer's effort. So let us open this blog. And it gives comparison of Java and Python. Now, if you see here, then first they have listed in very brief the advantages and disadvantages of Java. So, features of Java is that it is write once, read anywhere. So that means Java code can be run on any operating system. It carries its own virtual environment with it. So you can run on Windows, Mac, Android, or you can run on Ubuntu or any operating system for that matter. Java is nicely documented and it is backward compatible. So that means that many of the old features will still work with the recent Java version. And it is popular for decades. These are its disadvantages. The backward compatibility is controversial. Some people even say that it raises security issues, then certain incompatibilities arise, and as a result, certain features which are flawed and they should be retired in any case are still maintained in the programming language just for the sake of ensuring backward compatibility. And Java is a little bit memory intensive and verbose language. Verbose that you will clearly see that compared to a Python code for achieving the same goal, required Java code would be quite lengthy. Okay. Now Python it features in readability and flexibility. Python is unmatched. Then dynamic typing. So that means that the types are checked at the time of interpretation only, and there is no static type declaration. In many programming language, you have to first declare type of the variable when you declare a variable. For example, int a is equal to 5, float b is equal to 7.39. Int means integer and float means floating point number or the decimal number. So these things are not required in Python. You just write a is equal to 5 and b is equal to 7.39. Python will automatically understand the data type and it will assign the corresponding data type. Okay, so this is one more good thing about Python: dynamic typing and asynchronous code. That is also one of the good features of Python. And it is easy. Its learning curve is not very steep, so it is easy to learn. Now, these disadvantages here are written, but I discussed in previous lecture that many of these disadvantages are now removed. For example, single thread at a time due to the Python's global interpreter lock, which is called GIL. But now that GIL has been removed after a lot of deliberations in the Python developers community, finally it has been removed. Okay, so that is one thing. Limited performance. I also told about that nowadays even that is not issue because there are certain tools and libraries which make that. This limitation still remains that Python is not natively compatible with iOS or Android, and therefore for mobile development, Python may not be very useful. Okay, that is one limitation which remains. Now let us see what is meaning of various things. Say for example that dynamic typing and static typing and etc. So if you see, if I want to type that sentence, hello world, hi there everyone, then in Python I just have to write this much code and it will work. Now, if we want to do the same thing in Java, then you have to declare a class and all that. And even after that, if you do this statement, and as I said, don't worry about coding and everything, just focus on the concept at present, because those who are new to coding, they will find that this is going fast. But we are not yet learning coding, okay? So that will come later on. But we just want to learn some concept. Here you can see there is no such thing. Hello world is a string data type, that is word ordinary words, text, but we don't need to declare it. While here you have to declare it, that string arguments will come. Here also you have to declare a string array for string. So that is one thing. And second thing is that here hello world, hi there everyone, 6. Now this is an integer number, while this is here a string. So if you don't put this in quotes, then above 5 this Java code will not work, because in Java the type checking is strict. You can only combine string with another string. Okay, you cannot combine a string with a integer. But here you can do that. If you try to do this, I'm sorry, if you try to do this, then this code will not compile at all. And with Python, you can put string and integers in the same array and you can contain. But for Java, you cannot do that. So for Java, the code will not compile at all. So one is that. Second is about readability. Now there you can see this is a function. What this function does and everything, don't worry about it at all. But this is a function. Now compared to that, this is the same function written in Java. Both achieve the same task. But obviously the Python function looks quite readable, because one is that you don't have to keep on declaring everywhere the type of data and so on. So that is one thing. Then white space. So white space, as I said, Java ignores white space, while for Python it is essential part of it. Brevity. Now you can say if you want to open a new file in the read-only mode, then with Python the code is the single line. With open the file name, suppose myfile.txt in the read-only mode, else, and then name of the file, say in file means input file. While here in Java it is a little bit long. You can see there are multiple parentheses. Compare this with this, and you will immediately realize that Python is offers much more brevity. Okay. Then one more difference is interpreted versus compiled, that I have already explained. Okay. So this is one thing, that on these features Python definitely scores better compared to Java. Now, as I said, these are matters of individual preferences. As long as you can get job done, there are enough jobs for Java developers and enough for Python developers also. But so far as data science is concerned, unless you want to specialize in big data, there only Java will be useful. Otherwise, R and Python, they are the two prime language. Choose any one of them. I have chosen Python due to the reasons which we discussed in previous chapter. And then for big data also, learn only the required amount of Java, or maybe even big data frameworks also. Nowadays, as I already told in previous lectures, that big data frameworks in Python are also getting developed very quickly. So you can easily use only Python for entire data science. Now, if you read this, then it will feel that you don't have to mug up things. Simplicity and readability, that is the core feature of Python. Now that we have seen in previous example, its syntax is clear and intuitive. It is good programming language for beginners. In fact, even 8th standard kids or 7th standard kids in India have started learning Python. So that is okay. Now then interpreted language. So interpreted means at a time what particular line of code is taken and its output is generated next, and so on. It does not need entire code to be compiled first, and then you have to run that compiled file, and then your bugs will be seen in maybe if it is a thousands of line long code, then bugs will be seen in maybe 200 different lines, and then you have to again go to those lines and correct the bugs. In Python, it is easy. Write one line of code, check it, fix the bug. Write next line of code, check it, fix the bugs, and so on. So it makes it efficient development tool, and development process becomes speedy. Dynamic typing, as I said, there is no need. We saw in the previous example which I gave in that blog, that there is no need to declare the data type int k is equal to 5 and float d is equal to 7.39 and string hello. Nothing is required. Okay, it will understand the data type dynamically. Okay, so that is one very important feature. Here, this is a nice diagram that I have given just for the sake of understanding that these are the 10 main features which make the Python preferred language for beginners as well as advanced users. It is easy to learn and write, easy to read, interactive mode. It is open source. Java is also open source, but this is also open source. Portable. That means Python app which you have written on any OS can be ported to any other operating system. GUI programming is easy. Python has a rich set of GUI library, graphical user interface library, and starting from the old tkinter library to PyQt and many modern libraries today are there. So PyGUI and so many libraries. So one can develop attractive user interface. Then it is user-oriented language. It is independent dominial language. integrable with other languages. You can see this part, this 9 point, that during our course we will execute SQL code within Python. Now that is a big relief because SQL is a very preferred tool for data analysis. So if you want to, if you need to separately open that SQL server and then SQL workbench or any similar tool, and then you write the SQL code and then verify whether it is working, but your main app, everything else you are developing in Python, then why don't select some way by which SQL can run within the Python only? So we will see that Python has library like PySQL and etc. SQL Alchemy. So they allow the use of SQL code within Python. Now here user definition and building language and libraries, a rich set of libraries. R and Python both score very high on this scale. This matter. Okay. Now then this feature, expensive standard library. These are additional library. I spoke some names here, PyQt and PyGUI, and then here also I spoke some names, SQL Alchemy and PySQL and others. But they are the additional library which you have to install based on your requirement for a particular application. But the basic library, standard library of Python, that itself is sufficient. That it can provide several core programming tasks like connecting to web server, reading files, writing files, working with data. So even without installing any additional library, the Python's core library itself is sufficient for several tasks. So that is the biggest strength of Python. And this I said in previous lecture also, that it is a language which is in use since 1991. So a very vibrant community is there, and you will find plenty of documentation. And if you find any issue while developing, then just use online forums, and there are people who will answer your query, or perhaps your query would already been answered. So Stack Overflow, etc. you can use to get the information about your query. Here we will see this in our next lecture. What are popular applications of Python?